It's International Right to Know Day, a day that marks the rights of every citizen to access public information. And we'll tell you why it is important that you know what the government is doing. But first, we look at the Ministry of Tourism's plans for the tourism industry. Then we visit one of the premier destinations for community tourism on the island. And later, a tour of the Seville Heritage Park. I am Adrian Atkinson, and this is Jamaica Magazine. We start things off with the news right after this message.
The JIS Heritage Competition is back. Enter your essay, poster, or photo and win big prizes. If you're aged 9 to 12 years, enter the essay competition and tell us who is your favorite Jamaican sportsman or sportswoman and why. High school students, enter the poster competition. This year's theme is Jamaica's Rich Sporting Heritage. If you're a tertiary level student, enter the photo competition. This year's theme is I Am a Sports Champion. Competition closes for all 3 categories on November 6. Get started now. For information on submission and competition guidelines, visit our website at jis.gov.jm. Call 926-359-024, extension 2137, or send an email. Good day, I'm Lorraine Mendez and this is your JIS News for Wednesday, September 28. Prime Minister Andrew Holness is calling for greater U.S. investment in key areas of the Jamaican economy. Pointing to the USA's current investment in cleaner and cheaper energy, Prime Minister Holness says other sectors could be equally engaged.
There could be trade. There is greater cooperation on the area of security, not just drug trafficking or border security, but to genuinely help countries like Jamaica come to grips with the very difficult problems of organized crime and homicides. And then there could be facilitation in technology transfer. I mean, many things that are being produced here in the technology sector could also be produced in Jamaica. And so that kind of facilitation would also help in getting Jamaica to transition from being a middle-income country to a high-income country.
Mr. Holness was speaking at a recent Jamaica American Chamber of Commerce function in New York. Reiterating Jamaica's openness for business, Mr. Holness said government is putting its house in order through public sector facilitation of private sector growth on the island. This, he believes, will make foreign investments more attractive. The Prime Minister also updated the gathering on a comprehensive crime plan and work to improve the business climate. The Bureau of Standards Jamaica has developed a road safety standard system to assist organizations to reduce deaths and serious injuries related to road traffic crashes. Welcoming the safety standards, Transport Minister Mike Henry said the system will put a dent in the impact of road crashes on health and the economy. Traffic crashes and injuries have cost the country 2% of its GDP, reflected by an estimated cost to government of $1.6 billion and about $1.2 billion to insurance companies.
I'm particularly happy because at long last, some standardization is being brought to what has literally become a life and death situation. Additionally, it will outline the processes needed for the development and implementation of the road traffic safety policy. And this is a commendable attempt to get everyone on the same page.
In the meantime, Minister Mike Henry is inviting public comments and suggestions on the new Road Traffic Act, which was tabled in Parliament last week. Debate on the act began in the lower house on Wednesday.
It is this time now that I want to hear from everyone. Go on the website. Tell me what is wrong, what is right, what must be added, what must be subtracted, and what will socially impact that maybe make it difficult politically to be implemented at the right point in time. I'm prepared to articulate that on the floor of Parliament.
Government's planned divestment of the Jamaica Railway Corporation, JRC, and the Norman Manley International Airport, NMIA, is progressing smoothly.
We're at the stage where the Memorandum of Understanding for the restoration of the railway now lies with the company that has made the privatization application to the government, and I'm expecting to get answers in the next week or two as to where we move forward. Norman Manley Airport, the terms of reference for the privatization should be ready. The enterprise team is in place, and we're waiting that for it to be opened up to the public.
Minister Henry was speaking at a press conference to mark the handover of 35 new buses to the JUTC. In the meantime, the Transport and Mining Minister says he's working with the Education Ministry regarding the implementation of a dedicated bus service for schools. He says the program will start in Clarendon, where there was an accident involving 29 Garvey Maceo students. Legislation is coming to punish Justices of the Peace JPs who breached the Code of Conduct governing the office. Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Justice Carol Palmer made the announcement at a recent justice sensitization session in St. James. She said the ministry continues to receive reports that JPs are charging for their services. She is reminding persons that the services provided by JPs are voluntary.
People are not supposed to pay you for anything at all, even to replace your paper and to provide you with pens. If you cannot do these functions, then you need to submit your commission to the custos for decommissioning, because it is a free service.
Ms. Palmer noted further that some JPs have been allowing their family members to use their stamp to certify documents, a practice which is a serious breach that must be discontinued immediately. She also urged the JPs to ramp up their activities to include weekly visits to lockups. And finally, the Ministry of Tourism has named the 13 members of the relaunched National Cruise Council. The council, headed by businessman Michael Belnavis-Waite, is mandated to guide and grow the local cruise economy in a steady and sustainable manner. Council members will also advocate for the cruise business in Jamaica, monitor global cruise shipping trends, strategically safeguard relationships with cruise shipping lines, and enhance the experience of the cruise ship passenger. And that's it for JIS News Today. I'm Lorraine Mendez. Thank you for watching.
Nutritious food, succulent dishes, superior workmanship, and excellent service. Jamaica is on the go. Let's grow what we eat and eat what we grow. Let's harness the indomitable spirit of our most valued resource, our people. Let's support our local businesses. After all, buying Jamaican means building Jamaica.
More visitors, more earnings, more job opportunities. That's the government's aim for the tourism industry over the next 5 years. Here's how they plan to do it.
The 5-year plan for the tourism sector is a bold initiative to increase arrivals by 5% per annum for the next 5 years, to reach 5 million visitors by 2021, to generate $5 billion for the economy, to directly employ 125,000 workers, up from the current 88,000. These goals are attainable as research says each visitor to the island provides 60 employment opportunities. This plan is to enable Jamaica to have a 24/7 industry to combat and defeat tourism seasonality.
We are going to build out the 3 key segments that are critical. First, the agricultural segment, which deals with all that the consumed requirements are for food, for beverage, and so on. Then the second is the manufacturing. That is all the needs that they have for bedding, for the construction items that they need, for pots and pans and cans and kettles, and for bedding and for sheets and pillowcases and all that, right? And then the third one for the services that are required. Your banking services, your hospital medical services, your insurance services, and now your marketing services. We have to build the capacity of our people. So we're going to build a hospitality school. We're going to also build an institute of craft development, which is important to training our artisans. The reason that much of the workers in our tourism industry are not as strong in terms of their tenure as other industries. The reason why some are involved in what you call contract employment is because of the seasonality of the industry. So you work for 6 months and then you lay off because you have shoulder months and the industry can't pay anymore, and so you come back 3 months after. And so instead of having what is called permanent employment, or what we call in industry good jobs, you're ending up with seasonal jobs. So in building out the 24/7 arrangements, tourism will be there for you, and permanence will now be the feature of your employment situation.
And this will favorably affect worker welfare.
Absolutely. So the pension program that you know we have been working on will have a better and a stronger place, because now we will have our workers that are able to go 24/7 and every month of the year.
Building a strong tourism sector for the Jamaican economy. Finger-licking jerk chicken, Helcha fish and bami, we run down yam and banana, roast bread fruit, sweet potato pudding. Jamaica food sweet. So let's make a pledge to use more local produce and less foreign goods. Let's grow what we eat and eat what we grow.
In community tourism, members of a neighborhood come together to offer a unique experience to visitors. In our next feature, we'll show you how Treasure Beach in St. Elizabeth is proving to be a major player in this industry.
A quaint bed and breakfast perched on the edge. Villas nestled within beautiful flora and fauna. The perfect pathway for road races. We're at the desert coast of Jamaica, the spot that's said to receive the least amount of rainfall in the country, yet verdant with natural beauty. Welcome to Treasure Beach, St. Elizabeth. The area of Treasure Beach, St. Elizabeth has been earmarked as a pilot project to drive the development of community tourism across the island, and rightly so. For more than a decade, the residents have been capitalizing on the natural resources which surround them and bonded together to create an environment in which tourists can visit, sit, and sleep. This was long before the term community tourism was even popularized.
Persons in Treasure Beach want this area to remain low density. We want development, but we want low density, sustainable development. We do not wish to become a commercial resort high density area.
But with the island pulling in more than 3.65 million visitors in 2015, Treasure Beach is pushing hard to snatch a significant share of that number from the all-inclusive resorts. They want visitors to know that Treasure Beach is where there is peace. The area covers some 25 square miles, including the communities of Great Bay, Billards Bay, and Fort Charles. This is the breadbasket parish. With about 70,000 farmers in residence, food is abundant and natural. It offers a recipe for farm-to-table, dinner and lunches. Wellness festivals and sport events are also on offer at the place where public and private partners harmoniously erect business and social enterprises.
The products produced out of those workshops we sell in our craft shop. The people who participate, they get a share of it and we get a share of it. We keep 20%, the other 80% is split up to the people who make the products.
This is the perfect getaway for the people who are up and about, busy every day.
Welcome to Treasure Beach. And welcome to one of the several Treasure Tours buses that we have here. We're very happy that this is a JTB approved, Transportation Authority approved bus.
The people that come here, they want the height of living, you know.
We come here to just be happy in the sunshine and in the sea.
We have been coming here since 1998, first time. and we've come back to ITAL Rest 5 times.
In support of Treasure Beach's ventures, the government has provided an injection of $48 million from the Tourism Enhancement Fund to help the community implement its developmental projects. The program forms part of government's efforts to execute the community tourism policy recently tabled in Parliament. It has proven that through community tourism, the earnings gained from the broader sector can be further filtered to the ordinary man.
Whether you're a farmer, whether you're a fisherman, whether you're a bar owner, a restaurant, you name it, a coconut vendor, you are a part of this fabric of what we call Treasure Beach.
We hope to see you soon. Come home to Treasure Beach. You'll want to stay.
A healthy and educated people living in a clean, natural environment, reducing crime, improving the justice system and governance, building a prosperous economy. It's not just a vision, it's reality. Learn about the plan. Join the vision.
My country, Jamaica, has a rich heritage and is very unique. If we all pull together, we can make it the place of choice to live, work, raise family, and to do business.
For more information on Vision 2030, call the Planning Institute of Jamaica or visit vision2030.gov.jm, your parish library, school library, or the Jamaica Information Service.
The Seville Heritage Park, located in St. Anne, has many historical artifacts that allow us to step back in time to explore the very beginning of Jamaica's history and culture. Let's go back, way back.
Situated just outside the parish capital of St. Anne's Bay, it's been dubbed the birthplace of modern Jamaica. This 300-acre property showcases the convergence of the many cultures that have shaped Jamaica's history. It's a cultural and heritage site open to the public and operated by the government through the Jamaica National Heritage Trust.
Hi, welcome to the Seville Heritage Park. My name is Rodney. I'll be your guide. We're going through 7 rooms depicting the cultures that we have here in Jamaica. Come. Welcome. The Taino Indians, the first inhabitants of the island. They were here from 1500 years ago. Here we have a picture of what they looked like. And here we can see them playing a favorite game, a ball game played by both males and females. And that game was played mainly to settle disputes. The winner of the game would be the winner of the quarrel that they had. The cacique, the ruler of the village, an all-male governing structure, here was called Maima by the Indians, one of the 4 large Taino settlements here in the parish of St. Anne. Now, here we have some artifacts, hand axes, choppers and blades, the pestle stone used for pounding the corn and the cassava that they planted, an axe head, a scrape of stone used in the making of a canoe, and a canoe was made from one entire tree, a tree which was called the silk cotton tree. Over here, we have some of the idols that they would worship, idols which were called zemis. And zemis were just representation of their gods. Some of their utensils, bowls used to prepare and to store food, while in the middle we have fragments of their cooking pot, and that was used to cook their favorite meal, the pepper pot soup. A part of their griddle that was used to bake their cassava breads on. That cassava bread is what we call the bami. Now the Spanish were the second inhabitants of the island. They arrived here back in 1494, May 5th to be exact. Some of the artifacts that they brought, and they were the ones who brought the iron to Jamaica. They brought it as weapons. The sugar mold and that was used in the making of the sugar. And here we have a diagram of what that first sugar factory that was built here in Jamaica looked like. And we have ruins of that sugar factory on the other side of the property. They stayed here, building their homes until what they've created was the first Spanish capital of Jamaica. They even gave here a name. They called here Ciudad Nueva, which meant New Seville. The first church was built, the St. Peter Martyr Abbey Church. Also a governor's castle, home for the first Spanish governor of Jamaica, Sir Juan de Esquivel. The first sugar factory, built to crush that sugar cane, and an artisan workshop, built where these limestone rocks were carved on. These limestone carvings were unearthed back in 2004, buried 6 feet down. Baptismal font. What happened to the Indians while the Spanish had control of the island? Because the Spanish were here and introduced the encomienda system, that led to the almost extinction of the Taino population here in Jamaica. Africans were then brought to replace that workforce. And here we have pictures of how these Africans were carried from Africa to the Caribbean. A cross-section of a slave ship showing how these enslaved Africans were packed on board, shackled against each other, and a stock looking just like this was placed over the right foot of each and every one of these Africans, with a pin going through that, anchoring it to the floorboard of the ship. Now the British, they came in 1655, battled against the Spanish, and the British won. Jamaica was now under British rule. As rewards for their victory, they were given the island to share amongst themselves. So the captains of the British Army all got a part of the island. The captain who got here, 3,000 acres of this land, his name was Captain Richard Hemmings, and he was the one who built this house that we're in. This house was built in the late 1600s and then rebuilt back in 1745. At first it was a 2-floor house, built to overlook the entire property and also to reflect the wealth of the planter. But soon after the house was built, a hurricane passed through and damaged the top section of the house. His grandson came back in 1745, knocked off the top, added a roof to the bottom, and then placed that lovely veranda you saw outside onto the house, and that's how the house has been ever since. Some wares that you would have seen in a house like this. In this room on the board, we have the names of the enslaved Africans who were here on this estate. 274 of them, not counting those under 10. Now, even though some of these Africans were captured and brought here as slaves, they still brought their culture with them. Hence, the yaba. Made from clay, originated back in Africa, and the Africans would make it from the clay that was found here. The chamber pot, the candle holder, and the burnishing stones used to polish some of these pots. Here we have a picture of new enslaved Africans being seasoned, being taught how to work, tell them how to dig the field, how not to try to run away, because if you do so and you were caught, it would be punishment. The worst thing for you to do was to burn down any of their building. Punishment for that was death. Jamaica before and after 1838. The 3-legged pot used to cook in. and asked for fallen trees. And over here, this little lamp is what we call the kitchen bitch. They would pour oil at the bottom, light the wick at the top, and that would provide the light. Now, back in 1983, some archaeologists came and they did some digs at the site where Africans lived. And at that site, they found 4 skeletal remains, 3 males and a female. From their bodies, these items were taken. A carver's knife, a kidney stone, buttons, those were taken from the 3 males, and a piece of crystal, which is a piece of a decanter stopper, that was taken from the female body. The enslaved Africans were freed in 1838, but they were freed with nothing, no land, no money. They still had to go back and work for these plantation owners, who were even reluctant to pay them. They were able to pay other persons to work for them, and those persons were the Indians and the Chinese who were brought in as indentured laborers. Jamaica was still under British rule until August 6, 1962, when they rose their own flag.
Motorists, know your rights as road users. If you're stopped by the police in a road check, the police have the right to ask for your driver's license and vehicle documents. If you don't have the documents on you, you can ask for 5 days to provide them at a convenient police station. If you don't have vehicle insurance, you can be prosecuted and face the court. If you fail to renew the registration license, the police are entitled to seize your vehicle. If the police wish to search your vehicle, they should tell you the reasonable grounds for wanting the search. If you are given a ticket, sign it only if you plan to pay the fine and not contest the charge in court. And please be reminded, children under 18 years must wear a seatbelt, even if they are seated in the back. Know your rights. Knowledge of the traffic road code makes it easier to work with the police as they do their job to make the road safer for you and everyone else.
In a democracy, people choose their leaders by voting. But after our leaders have been elected, we need to ensure we keep up to date with government happenings. One way this can be done is through accessing public sector documents. With the passing and implementation of the Right to Know Act, the government of Jamaica has safeguarded the right of citizens to access official government papers. Why is your right to know so critical? Well, access to information provides citizens with the knowledge to address public issues. It also reveals the basis for government decisions. This means we are empowered to make the requisite checks, thereby playing our role in making Jamaica the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business. Today's show has come to an end, but information from JIS is always at your fingertips. Visit our website, jis.gov.jm, and follow us on Twitter at JIS News or like our Facebook page. Got feedback or comments on today's show? Send an email to jamaicamagazine@jis.gov.jm. I'm Adrian Atkinson. Do take care.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.